I thought we had it all. A happy home, a beautiful wife, and our precious daughter. But it was all a lie. Lilly, with her striking blue eyes and long blonde hair, betrayed me. I discovered her dancing, kissing other men, like our vows meant nothing. I paid her spousal support in coins, letting the world see her greed. She made our daughter suffer, but I won't let her win. In jail, I planned my revenge. Exposing her and her lovers, I made her fall from grace. Now our daughter is free, and I'm ready to reclaim my life. This is my story of betrayal and vengeance. I am setting the spousal support at $2,000 per month, the judge said. You will also continue to pay the mortgage, $1,000 for child support, and health insurance until your minor child becomes a legal adult. If the child attends college, you are required to cover those expenses too. That judgment would cost me over $6,500 per month. My wife had been cheating with several lawyers from her firm, but now I was the one paying the price. My name is Kurt D'Angelo, and my ex-wife is Lilly. We have a daughter, Regina, who is my pride and joy. Saying she is a daddy's girl is putting it lightly. She used to tell the judge that she wanted to live with me, but he wouldn't listen. The whole thing was unfair. The support payments were ridiculous. Lilly had a job and earned her own money. Why did I have to support her, pay the mortgage, and all the rest? The judge was against me, no doubt, but I wasn't going down without a fight. I had plans to make her regret what she did. I can be very hard to deal with when I feel mistreated. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, Lansing, Illinois, to be exact. We know how to get back at people. I see myself as a businessman who finds chances and takes them. When I was younger, some of those chances weren't exactly legal. Now, I'm into real estate with many rental properties and vending machines. I also own a coin change business similar to Coinstar. This would be useful for one of my payback plans to my ex-wife. I plan to pay her the $2,000 support entirely in change. Let her carry those coins to the bank. They would ask her to put them all in rolls. Maybe she could get help from one of her lawyer friends. Lilly had stayed home with Regina until she started school. Then Lilly worked part-time jobs until she decided to become a paralegal. After studying for 2 years, she sent out many resumes and got a job at a big law firm after 6 weeks. Lilly is smart, but I think her looks helped her get that job too, even at 32. She was one of many paralegals, but she quickly moved up. Some young lawyer noticed her and made her his assistant. Now I wonder if she was trading favors back then. I supported her career. She would come home tired, but with a smile. Thinking back, I wonder why she was so tired and what those smiles meant. We lived in a nice house in Oak Forest, Illinois, a regular working-class area near Chicago. As she got more involved with the lawyers and partners, her attitude changed. She wanted us to move to a better neighborhood. She said, "You make good money and I work at a top law firm. We need to show we've made it." I liked our house. We'd made it our own and didn't need a more expensive place. But after 2 years of her nagging, I agreed to move. I told her we wouldn't sell our house. We could rent it out. So, we bought a house in Wilmette on the north side of Chicago. We got a big loan to afford the $900,000 mansion. It was close to Lake Michigan. She decorated it with new furniture. I never felt at home there. Thinking back, I believe that was the start of our end. We wanted different things. I wanted a quiet life. She wanted to show off our money. Now back to the judge's divorce decision. I would follow his rules, but she wouldn't like it. In the next month, I started planning. My daughter would get her child support, but Lilly wouldn't see a dime of it. It would go into an account just for Regina. She would also have the best health insurance. Lilly, however, would only get a basic policy with a high deductible. She would have to pay for most of her health care. When 30 days passed, it was time for the first spousal support payment. I had an armored truck pull over to the mansion. The driver knocked on the door, and when Lilly answered, she wasn't alone. One of her lawyer friends was with her. The driver told her he was there to deliver her first payment. She was confused, not understanding why an armored truck was in the driveway. By then, a couple of nosy neighbors had come outside. Maybe they thought she had won some big prize. What they saw was 2 men carrying bags of change into the house, emptying them on the marble floor. The sound was incredible, even from across the street where I stood by my car, filming it on my phone. As the truck left, she saw me and started yelling. I waved and shouted, "Enjoy your dirty money!" Then I climbed into my truck and drove off. On Tuesday, a man came up to me and asked, "Are you Kurt D'Angelo?" I didn't answer. He asked again, louder, "Sir, are you Kurt D'Angelo?" I still didn't respond. He took out his phone, snapped a photo of me with a paper he was holding, and then let the paper fall to the ground. "You've been served," he said, before walking away. After he left, I bent down and picked up the paper. I was supposed to go to court the next Wednesday. That gave me a week to get ready. I used the week wisely. I made calls, talked to people, and got everything in order for court. I also met up with Regina for lunch. She was upset with her mom, calling her all sorts of names. Regina told her mom again that she wanted to live with me, but her mom wouldn't agree. I told Regina, "I'll ask the judge again. If he says no, I might end up in jail." "Don't do anything crazy, Dad. It's not worth it," she said. "Don't worry, I won't. I will speak my mind, though, and that might get me in trouble. Your mom will probably enjoy that, but I'll be okay. For you, I've set up a trust. Uncle Ken will take care of it until you're an adult. It's for you, not your mom." "Of course, Dad. She doesn't deserve anything," Regina said firmly. "She was strong and growing up fast." "Dad, I'm going to come to court with you. I want to tell the judge I want to live with you." "I don't know if that'll make a difference." Wednesday came, and Regina, my lawyer, and I sat in the courtroom waiting for our turn. Lilly came in with her lawyer and said, "Hey, jerk, you'd better understand you can't do whatever you want." When the judge called my name, Regina stood up and went to speak first. "Excuse me, miss. This case is about Kurt D'Angelo," the judge said. "I'm his daughter, and I want to ask the court again to let me live with my dad, not my mom," she said, looking at Lilly. "Young lady, you can't talk like that here. The decision has already been made," said the judge. "But I'm 15. I should get to choose who I live with," Regina said, cutting the judge off. "There were claims of an improper relationship with your father, so I decided you should be with your mother." When I heard that, I looked at Lilly, who was smirking. My lawyer spoke up. "Your Honor, we don't know of any such claims, nor have any been brought before." "I'm talking about a report from a psychiatrist," the judge said. "With that information, I'm keeping my decision. The matter is closed." A few months ago, Regina had trouble dealing with the divorce in school, so we had her talk to a psychiatrist. There must have been something in those notes that Lilly thought could sway the judge. I'd never done anything wrong with Regina. Lilly was trying to make me look like a monster. I was furious. I couldn't believe Lilly would lie like that. The judge wouldn't even let us tell our side. I stared at the judge, feeling angry. I guessed Lilly's law firm was running the show, but they would see the results soon. Lilly's lawyer said, "We ask the court to find Kurt D'Angelo in contempt." My lawyer was almost as angry as I was. He knew we wouldn't get justice that day. "Your Honor, my client has followed all the terms of the divorce. There's no reason for contempt." "Your Honor," Lilly's lawyer said, "his payment was delivered a week ago Saturday by dumping it on the floor." "So?" the judge asked. "The $2,000 was all in coins, mostly pennies and nickels. It damaged the floor and took a lot of time to clean up." My lawyer didn't wait for the judge to respond. "Your Honor, Section 5103 of Title 31 United States Code says that all U.S. coins and currency are legal for all debts. My client paid the support. He has also kept up with insurance, mortgage, and child support." "Your Honor," Lilly's lawyer said, "my client hasn't received child support." "That's correct, Your Honor," my lawyer said. "The support has been given directly to his daughter. You can ask her yourself." The judge looked confused. He glanced at Regina, who nodded. "We have canceled checks for the insurance and mortgage," my lawyer said. I looked at Lilly and her lawyer. They were trying to come up with something. "Your Honor," he said, "paying in coins causes hardship. Can we ask that she get a check instead?" The judge finally spoke. "That seems fair." Before he could say more, my lawyer spoke up. "Your Honor, before we go further, can I ask a couple of questions?" "And what are those?" the judge responded. "Are the Chicago police part of the legal system in Chicago?" The judge looked at my lawyer as if he was crazy. "Of course they are," he said. "Then why is it," my lawyer continued, "that if my client gets his car impounded and wants it back, he can't write a check and must pay either in cash or with a credit card?" The judge stammered, My lawyer pressed on. "If the police, who you admit are part of the legal system in Chicago, won't accept a check, then why should my client be forced to make future support payments by check? The judge, now looking a bit foolish, got defensive. Because this is my court, and what I say goes. I had enough. I stood up and said, because you're the law and you're trying to please my wife's law firm. Was she good to you too? He exploded. Mr. D'Angelo, I find you in contempt of court and sentence you to 6 months in Cook County Jail unless you apologize to me and this court and agree to any terms I impose. Who do you think you are? The king? King of this crazy court? I shouted. The judge was shocked. I'm sure no one had ever spoken to him like that before. Bailiff, take this man into custody. I looked over at Lilly and her lawyer. They were stunned. Good luck getting your money now, I said, and then smiled. She had no idea how much her life was about to change. I was taken to holding, strip-searched, and moved to jail. Jail is a nice word for it. It's more like a prison. Right away, 2 guards started hassling me for disrespecting the judge. I wasn't scared of jail. I'm 6'4" and weigh about 255 pounds of muscle. Working on my rental properties kept me fit. Plus, I spent a little time in juvie as a teenager. I was processed and taken to the cell yard. I ignored the noise and yelling around me. I decided to stay to myself and always watch my back. As long as no one messed with me, I would be a ghost. When dinner was served, I got my tray and went through the line. I stood against a wall and ate while looking at the tough guys trying to act bigger than they were. Then, amid the noise, I heard a voice I hadn't heard in years say, Tex. My street friends used to call me Tex when I was a kid. Tex? Said Randall, also known as Ringer. What the heck are you doing in here? As he walked up, many eyes followed him to me. I put my tray down and hugged him, our right hands clasped together and the other arm around the shoulders. Ringer, wow, aren't you a sight for sore eyes? How have you been? Well, I'm in here, so not great. You neither, I guess. What happened? I told a judge he was an idiot. That'll do it, he said. So how long you in for? 6 months, unless I apologize to that jerk. So 6 months. We talked and ate while other inmates watched us. Ringer told me what I needed to know about the place. He promised he'd watch my back and I'd do the same. We talked about old times. So, what are you going to do about your ex, her guys, and the judge? He asked after hearing my story. He knew me from when I was young. I used to deal with things by seeking revenge. In fact, that's why I got the nickname Tex. Tex was short for Texas. You know, don't mess with Texas. Those who messed with me paid the price. They learned not to cross me and warned others, too. So, the judge. What happened? He asked. I told him he was a real jerk. Oh, man, what did he do? Ringer asked. He took my little girl from me, even though she wanted to live with me. Then he basically accused me of hurting her. Wow, so what are you going to do about it? I've got some plans. I kind of figured I'd end up in here, so I started planning weeks ago. Can I help? He asked. Maybe, but I don't know right now. It's sure nice to have a friend in here, though. I'll introduce you to some of my buddies in here. It's good to have people who will watch your back. After some introductions, Ringer started telling some stories from when we roamed the streets of Lansing. There were a few laughs, but mostly nods, as if their stories weren't much different. That night, I lay in my bunk staring at the wall. How did it get to this? I asked myself. I started thinking about my life. My childhood was tough by most standards. A dad who was a violent drunk and a mom who wouldn't stand up to him, even when he started beating me. That made me spend most of my time on the streets. I joined a group of guys in similar situations. We weren't a gang, even though we thought we were. We were just dumb kids dealing with the hands we were dealt. The crime rate in Lansing was high, and we weren't helping. Mostly small stuff, but we did steal a car or two. That's what got me sent to juvie. Looking back, it was probably the best thing to happen to me. Sure, it was rough, but I had time to think about where my life was heading. I promised myself I would do something with my life. When I got out, I changed. I started planning for a future. By the time I was 20, I had saved enough to buy a tax-foreclosed house in the neighborhood. That became the first of many houses I fixed up and started renting out. When I was 22, I was at a club trying to meet someone. I don't even remember the name of the club. It changed names many times over the next decade before it was torn down to build condos. That night, I thought I got lucky. I met Lilly. We hit it off right away. Her life was very different from mine. She had just moved to Chicago to live with a friend. She grew up in Seymour, Indiana, a small town known for being the hometown of John Cougar Mellencamp. He was already famous and had moved away before Lilly was born, so she never met him. Growing up in a small Midwest town made her a 21-year-old woman with a positive attitude towards life, which I liked. I guess opposites attract. We got married a year later, and a year after that, Regina was born. We named her after Lilly's mom. I had bought a house in Oak Forest to fix and sell, but when she saw it, she loved it and wanted it to be our home. We spent the next 10 years fixing it up the way we wanted. Those were the best 10 years of my life. We worked on home projects together, watched our daughter grow up, and had neighbors over for BBQs. It felt like the American dream. Then Lilly got a job at a law firm and things began to change, especially her attitude. The simple life was no longer good enough for her. She wanted fancy clothes and jewelry. Neighborhood BBQs were replaced by dinners at expensive restaurants with people from her law firm. She also started making negative comments about people from the South Side of Chicago. I knew about the reputation and reality of the South Side, but she was acting like she was better than everyone else, even though she was from a small town. We had many arguments about her attitude. After a while, she started insisting we move to the North Side. 3 years ago, we moved there. The school system was better, but now Regina was dealing with the North Side attitude from her classmates. This made school unbearable for her. She kept saying she wanted to go back home. I felt the same, but Lilly refused. She was happy where she was. The event that started our divorce happened one night, like many others. Lilly called around 6:30 p.m. to say she was going dancing with some colleagues. That night, I tracked her phone and decided to check up on her. I stood in the shadows, watching. She was dancing with guys from the club, and it was clear she was very close with them. Around 9:15 p.m., I went to the bathroom. While I was there, 2 guys came in talking loudly. One said, "Damn, Joe, you're getting close with Lilly on the dance floor. I thought you were going to get more than friendly right there." "Yeah, she's something else," the first guy said. "Yeah, and she sure knows how to get attention," said the second guy. "You know it. She told me she's coming home with me tonight." Finally, something more than a quick moment in the office or my car. "Well, it will be a night to remember tonight," the first guy boasted. "Maybe I'll get my turn next weekend," said the second guy as they both left the restroom. I walked out a minute later and saw Lilly kissing one of the guys on the dance floor. Around 9:30 p.m., she texted me saying she drank too much and didn't feel safe taking the train home. She said she would spend the night with Paula, another colleague. I texted back, "That is just as well." Then she replied, "Sorry." She would indeed be sorry. I watched her grab her handbag and leave the club with a young lawyer from her office. They didn't notice me. They got in his Lexus and started kissing. I was angry but kept calm, making my plans. I followed them to his building. When they went into the parking garage, I took off for our house. When I got home, I explained to Regina that we were leaving and to pack things she wanted to keep because we wouldn't be coming back. She was happy but asked, "What about Mom?" "She has others to take care of her now," I replied. She got what I meant. It took us about 3 hours to pack everything in the truck. Luckily, our house in Oak Forest had just become available, so we had somewhere to go. Around 11 a.m. the next day, Saturday, Lilly called my cell. "Kurt, what's going on? Where are you?" "Home," I said. She figured out what I meant. "Why?" she asked, even though she knew why. "I no longer know you, nor do I want to." "Where's Regina?" "With me. She no longer wants to live with you in that house." Lilly wasn't sure if I knew about her affair or not, so she said, "Just because you don't like living in luxury doesn't mean you can just leave and take our daughter." "No, Lilly, but having a wife who cheats is a reason to leave. Expect divorce papers next week." She gasped, and then said with her usual rude tone, "You piece of crap. You have no idea what trouble you're in. My firm will crush you." "That may be so," I said, "but I will win in the end. You've never seen my full wrath." Over the next 6 months, she made no attempt to make things right. She would call me to say she was meeting one lawyer or another. I didn't care. There was no turning back. But I had to bring Regina back to school. Regina told me that Lilly stayed out late almost every night until at least midnight. She also said Lilly kept putting me down, claiming I had no class. She suggested Regina should marry one of the rich guys from her school, so you can live in luxury forever. Regina always defended me. She kept telling her mom she wanted to return to Oak Forest. Now I'm lying in a jail cell, and Lilly probably thought she had won. I was locked up, but I would keep busy. I wondered if she thought about how the mortgage, her health insurance, and her spousal support would be paid. She might think a few days in jail would make me change my mind. No, it would just give me more time to plan my next move. On Thursday afternoon, something happened that would change many lives, some people I would never even meet. 2 guards ordered me to come with us. They took me to a room with a video set up. I asked, "What's this about? If I'm speaking to the judge, I want my lawyer." They pushed me in the room and said, "Sit down. You're not talking to the judge, but you are getting some judgment." They slammed the door shut. I started yelling at them to let me out. About 10 minutes later, I was pacing the room when the door opened. 6 other inmates were let in. I knew what they planned to do, and I would fight back. I shouted, "You don't want to mess with me, you'll regret it." One of them came at me, and I punched him in the nose. I heard it crack. Then they all rushed me. I fought, swing, kicking, elbowing, and throwing them against the walls. Then the biggest one, much taller than me, put me in a chokehold. I kept fighting until I blacked out. I woke up in the prison infirmary. I was bloody, bruised, and sore everywhere. I knew what they had done. They needed to show power, and this was how they did it. The morning light shined through the window. I had been out all night. A nurse came up to me. I looked at her with anger, angry at the system that took away my child, made me pay for my ex-wife to live in the mansion, and now put me in jail to teach me a lesson. The nurse saw the anger in my eyes and said, "I'm here to help you, not hurt you. You've been beaten up badly. They said you were in a fight, but we both know the truth. I can help you get better, or you can stay in pain. It doesn't matter to me." I could tell she didn't mean the last part. She wanted to help. I tried to smile and said, "Sorry. You've been through a lot. I can only imagine your anger." She left but came back with breakfast for me. She freed one of my hands. "Thank you," I said. "You're welcome." As I ate, I knew what I was going to do. "Can I ask a favor?" I said. "That depends," she responded. "One of the inmates, Randall Turner, is a friend from way back. Could I see him?" "I'll see," she said, without promising anything. She managed to get permission for Randall to visit. That afternoon, he walked in. Seeing me, he said, "Oh, no." He knew I wouldn't let this go. I told him about the 6 guys and 2 guards who attacked me. Then I said, "I need their full names, not their nicknames." "Oh, no," he said again. "What are you going to do? An eye for an eye with a twist?" He saw the look in my eyes. He knew it wouldn't end well and that some innocent people might get hurt. "I'll try to find them," he said. "What do you need me to do?" "Just that. I'll handle the rest." We talked a bit longer, and then he was taken back to his cell. That night, I couldn't sleep well. It was hard to get comfortable tied to the bed. The next day, Randall came back with the list. He asked again, "What are you going to do?" "The less you know, the better," I told him. "Oh, no," he said. The next day was Sunday, and I got a surprise visit. Lilly had come and brought Regina. Lilly spoke first. "So I see you're making friends with other jailbirds," she said. "What do you want?" I growled. "Regina insisted we visit. Are you ready to apologize and be reasonable yet?" "No way! And what's this nonsense about me and Regina? You know I'd never harm her." "How do I know? She does seem unusually close to you," she said. "You piece of trash! Go back to your flings and leave us alone." "Just so you know, I've moved on, and I'm happy about it," she said smugly. "Get out and send Regina in. I'm done talking to you." She smiled a sly smile. She thought she was getting to me, and she was, just adding to my anger. When Regina came in, she started crying, seeing me all bandaged up. "Honey, don't cry. It looks worse than it is." "Oh, Dad, I was scared seeing you like this. You look like you were in a bad accident." "Don't worry about me, honey. I'm tougher than I look." "Dad, I hate Mom for doing this to you. I hate her for making me live with her, and I hate her for saying you did bad things to me." "That's just total nonsense." "I know, Gina," I said, trying to comfort her. "Don't call me that anymore," she snapped. I looked at her confused. "I'm Gina now. I don't want any ties to Mom or her family. I told her that and said I wouldn't talk to her unless I had to. And I haven't since Monday. She keeps trying to reach out, but I ignore her." "Gina, I said, using her new name. "You're more like me than you think." "And I'm proud of it," she said, smiling. We talked about small things for a while. Then I asked, "Can you do something for me?" "Anything, Dad." I handed her the list Ringer made for me. She quickly hid it in her bag. "Give that to Uncle Ken and tell him to visit me as soon as possible." Ken, my younger brother by 3 years, grew up under the same abusive father. I tried to protect him as much as I could. I took most of the abuse so he wouldn't have to. Ken was smart. He got into computer games and then computers themselves. We talked a bit longer until Lilly came back and said, "Gina, we have to go." Gina didn't reply. She got up, hugged me, and walked out. Lilly then said to me, "Your daughter is just as stubborn as you." I smiled as she turned and left. Ken came to visit on Tuesday. He looked shocked at how I looked. "It's better than it was last Friday," I said. "I'm glad I waited," he joked. Then he switched to our own made-up language. We invented it as kids to talk about Mom and Dad without them understanding us. Now we use it for private talks. Regina. "Sorry, Gina," he said. "She gave me the list. I've started looking into it. What exactly do you need?" "Addresses of their wives or steady girlfriends?" He looked worried, then said in English, "Oh no." Back in our language, I said, "Just get that info and give it to Gummy. Ask him to visit me without the list." Gummy was one of my friends. He still lived in his parents' old house. "Got it. Anything else?" "No, just stay in touch. I could use a friendly face." "Aren't you getting out soon?" he asked. "Not if I don't apologize, and you know I won't." "You've always been stubborn." "Yeah, and it kept you safer from Dad's anger," I said. He knew I was right and just smiled. "I'll check on you within 2 weeks." "Thanks." Later that week, I was back in my normal cell. Ringer had spread the word that something was going to happen. The guards and the six gave me looks that said, "Don't step out of line or else." They had no idea what was coming. Gummy came to visit. "Ken gave me the information. What do you want?" "Did you hear what they did to me?" I asked. "Yeah, Ken told me. Pay them back, but target their loved ones. No evidence left behind. Use someone careful." He nodded, understanding my instructions. "All on the same day, if possible, and make sure they hear, 'Don't mess with Texas.'" "I'll get some friends to help," he said, then left. Soon my revenge would be set in motion. He knew how to do it without leaving any trace. They'd understand the message, though. A week passed with no news. I waited for another visit from Gina. I knew Lilly would have to bring her, but I didn't want to see her. On Tuesday, 2 guards were missing from work. It wasn't their usual day off. One of the 6 looked upset. It must have happened yesterday, I thought. I told Ringer to spread the message, "Don't mess with Texas." Soon, people were calling me Tex. Within a few days, the 6 and the guards gave me dirty looks, but Ringer's friends had my back. When one of the 6 came up to me, 8 of my new friends surrounded us. The guy said, "You're a piece of trash. My girl dumped me. She said she didn't want to risk getting hurt again. Then she told me she heard, 'Don't mess with Texas.' I just smiled and said, 'Sounds like smart advice. I warned you. Now your women know how it feels. Hurt me. I hurt your loved ones. Next time, it'll be their mothers." His eyes went wide and he backed off. Later, 2 guards approached me. "Who do you think you are? We're going to make your life hell." "Then I guess your wives better get used to it. They might even start to like it." One guard tried to punch me. I didn't fight back. Other guards pulled him off me after a minute. Many inmates saw it. So did the cameras. I was taken to the infirmary where I met Beth, the nurse from before. "So, we have a troublemaker here, huh?" "I didn't throw any punches," I said. "The guard just started hitting me," I said. "Well, this time there will be an investigation. Too many people saw it, he'll probably lose his job." "One less bad guard," I replied. "Those guards keep you safe, whether you believe it or not." "He sure didn't keep me safe last time. In fact, he let it happen," I responded. She bandaged me up and said I would need to stay overnight for observation. I wondered if she just wanted to look at my face, bruised as it was. The guard was put on suspension while they investigated. The other guard kept giving me harsh looks, but he didn't say anything. Maybe he understood. Don't mess with Texas. It had been 3 weeks since Gina had come to visit me, and I wondered what was going on. Finally, Ken came to visit and told me that Lilly was refusing to bring Gina down for a visit. That made me even angrier. My ex-wife was keeping my daughter from me. At the end of the month, Lilly came. She almost left Gina at home, but Gina wouldn't get out of the car, no matter how much Lilly yelled and screamed. Lilly came in to see me, and she was already mad. "Your daughter is being impossible. She hardly ever talks to me. She's as stubborn as you are." "You said that last time you were here. Why don't you get the judge to change his decision and give me custody? I'll gladly take her off your hands," I told her. "You aren't getting her. She needs to go to a good school so she can make something of herself." "Oak Forest is a good school, and she liked it," I replied. "It doesn't even come close to Wilmette. She is getting a great education and meeting people who can help her in the future," she retorted. "Our daughter will make her own way in life. She doesn't need to ride on anyone else's success," I countered. "You're just too stubborn to see the good it can bring. Lilly, we've had this argument hundreds of times. You're never going to change my mind, and I'm not going to change yours. Why did you come here anyway? I know it wasn't to bring Gina to me." "Her name is Regina, not Gina." "Well, that's not what she wants to be called. Don't you want her to be an independent woman?" "You mean stubborn," Lilly said. "No, I mean independent. Able to think for herself, decide what is right for her, not be swayed by someone with money or power." She looked at me and sneered. She knew what I meant. "So anyway," she said, "I need my spousal support payment. I have things I need to buy and bills to pay. You'll have to afford those on your own paycheck. While I'm in jail, I can't receive checks from my company, nor should I. No work means no pay. That's how it works in the real world." "What do you mean? I can't afford all the bills on my salary." "Well, you should have thought about that before you took me back to court," I responded. "Well, you were being an ass, making the payment with change." "Well, now you get no payment because I'm in jail." "You have to," she said. "No, I don't. What are they going to do to me, throw me in jail if I don't pay? Oh, I'm already in jail. Wouldn't be very wise of them to take me out just to put me back in." "What am I supposed to do about the bills?" she whined. I looked at her and said, "Get one of your lawyer friends to pay the bills. I'm sure you're worth it." At that, she stormed out of the room. Gina came in. "I was so glad to see her." "Wow, you really made her mad," she said. "She expects me to keep paying her while I'm sitting in jail." "Huh, good luck," I said. "How are you holding up, Dad?" "Don't worry about me, I'll be fine. How are you doing? I hear you're still not talking to your mom." "Not very much, only when I have to," she said. "So when are you getting out of here?" "Honey, I refuse to apologize to that judge. The only way I would apologize is if he gave you back to me. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. I may not get out of here until my 6 months are up." "I understand," she said sadly. "You know my birthday is next month. I'd love for you to be out so we could celebrate, but I wouldn't want you to go against your principles. We can celebrate when you get out." That tore me up. I started reconsidering my stance. I was hurting my little girl by being in here. Then Gina said something that put it all into perspective. If a person doesn't have principles, he has nothing. Like Abraham Lincoln said, "Important principles may and must be inflexible," she recited. "Where did you hear that?" I asked. "My counselor, Alex, sorry, Dr. Hodges, at school. It's been great having someone to talk to about all of this. Some of my teachers noticed my grades slipping and had the counselor come talk to me. It has also helped me deal with Mom, even though I'm still not talking to her. It figures that a school like Wilmette would have a doctor of psychology as their student counselor. Those rich kids couldn't talk to just any school counselor. Then I said to Gina, "Your mom seems to be mad at you too." "Yeah, she's quite irritated with me. I just ignore her, and I think that makes it worse, but I don't care." "Well, in a couple more months, she'll have to start looking for a place to live. The bank isn't going to let a big loan go too long without a payment. I figure within 3 months her mansion will be foreclosed on." "But Dad, if the house gets foreclosed on, won't that wreck your credit?" "Honey, when you usually buy things with cash, you don't worry about credit. That stupid mansion was the only thing I ever took out a loan for." "Really? Wow, Dad, even with all your rentals and the other businesses?" "I never took out a loan," I told her. "Just used cash from other deals to buy new ones." "Dad, I've always looked up to you, but now I admire you even more," she said with a big smile. "Thanks, honey. You really know how to cheer me up." It was a great visit with my daughter. It made me wish we could be together more often. Missing her birthday was going to be tough for both of us, but I knew she was strong and she'd be fine. The next week I heard some news. One of the guards who hit me got fired. It was hard to deny the video that showed me not fighting back. A few days later, the other guard was gone too. Don't know if he was transferred, but at least he was out of here. Many inmates thanked me for getting rid of the bad guards. I think they started to respect me more. More people began calling me Tex, and I didn't have much trouble after that. The 6E were still mad at me. I heard one of their wives filed for divorce, and a few others were dumped by their girlfriends. Maybe they were learning. With the threat of more paybacks and my better standing with the other inmates, they knew not to mess with me. A couple of weeks later, I was called to the video room for a meeting with the judge. I told the guard, "I'm not meeting anyone without my lawyer." "But the judge is waiting now," he said. "I don't care. I want my lawyer. Let him reschedule. My schedule is wide open." The guard hesitated, then walked away. 3 days later, I was told the meeting was set for the next week. I asked for half an hour with my lawyer beforehand. They agreed, and my lawyer and I met to talk about what might happen. My lawyer said he had no information about the meeting, which he found strange. I guess we would have to play it by ear. When the judge appeared on the screen, he didn't look happy. I didn't care. I thought he was full of himself just because he was a judge. My lawyer spoke up right away. "Your Honor, may I ask what this pertains to? We received no details, just that we had to be here." "Your client didn't need you here," said the judge. "I wanted to see if he would apologize to the court for his outburst." I whispered to my lawyer, and he nodded. "Your Honor," my lawyer said, "he won't apologize and asks that you apologize to him. Also, he requests primary custody of his child." The judge looked shocked. How could I ask him to apologize? Of course he wouldn't. "My ruling on the child stands, and I have nothing to apologize for," he said. "Well then, this was a waste of time. If my client changes his mind later, we will request another meeting. Good day, sir." "One more thing," the judge said. In my mind, I thought, now we'd find out the real reason for the meeting. "Your client isn't following the divorce judgment. When does he plan to pay spousal support and the mortgage?" I whispered to my lawyer again. "Your Honor, he won't make any payments while in jail." "But his house is going into foreclosure," the judge said. "It's not my home, maybe my wife's mansion, but not mine. I never wanted it," I said directly to the judge. "This will ruin your credit and you'll lose all your equity," he warned. "Small price to see my ex-wife where she belongs," I replied. Then, to anger him more, I said, "Maybe her buddies can make the payments. I'm sure the lot of you can come up with the money." The judge lost it. "You no-good South Side trash, who do you think you're talking to?" I cut him off. "I think I'm talking to someone who has been with my wife. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. I just don't understand why someone who isn't involved cares so much." Then I got up and walked to the door to be let out. I heard the judge say, "Counselor, your client just earned 2 more months in jail. If he keeps disrespecting me, I'll make his life miserable." I smiled as I awaited the guard to take me back to my cell. He looked shocked. He couldn't believe what I had done. Back in my cell, I felt energized. My wife must have talked about the mortgage to her friends, and they informed the judge. What a mess. Their time was coming soon. The next Sunday, Lilly visited me in jail. Luckily, Gina heard about it and came along. "So, I hear you annoyed the judge again and got 2 more months in jail. When will you learn? You can't fight the system." "Lilly, stop talking to me. Your North Side attitude isn't helping. Just make sure Gina visits me regularly." She nearly yelled, "It's Regina!" I turned away and wouldn't speak to her. She kept complaining until she left and Gina came in. Gina smiled widely. "Why are you so happy?" I asked. "Because I get to see my dad," she said. "That can't be the only reason," I said. "Well, I have a surprise, but I can't tell you yet. I need to work it out first." "Dad, do you trust me?" "With my life," I replied. "Then will you sign this paper without reading it first?" she asked, holding up a folded piece of paper. I looked at her carefully. "What are you planning?" "You'll have to wait and see. Don't you trust me?" I smiled and signed the paper. She had it folded so only the part where I needed to sign was visible. "Mom told me you did something to get your jail time extended by 2 more months. Is that true?" "Yeah, I'm sorry, honey. What did you do?" "I had another argument with the judge. Well, whatever you did, he probably deserved it. We talked some more about school and her mom. She kept mentioning this Dr. Alex Hodges, and I wondered what was going on. I tried to find out about the surprise that needed my signature, but she said it had to stay a secret. I'm sorry I won't be around for your sweet 16, but when you visit me next time, I'll have a birthday gift for you. What is it? She asked. That's a surprise. So I guess we both have surprises waiting for us. At the end of the visit, I asked Gina to have Greg come see me. Greg was my right-hand man. He helped with all my business matters. Sure, Dad, she said. I had given Greg some tasks when I thought I might be jailed. I hoped he had done them. Now I had another job for him, Gina's birthday surprise. Later that week, Greg came to visit. He had finished a lot of the tasks I asked. Then I told him about Gina's surprise. He looked at me and asked, Are you sure? Yes, it's the perfect gift for her. Okay, I'll talk to our lawyer, he said. Also, visit my brother Ken and give him what you got. He'll know what to do with it. If he has questions, he can visit me. If not, tell him to get in touch with Gummy. Will do, he said, and left. I smiled and kept smiling all day. Gummy knew my clever mind and would help me get back at someone while I was innocently sitting in jail. By the end of the month, my popularity with the other inmates had grown. That guard must have told someone how I treated the judge, and word spread quickly. Soon, everyone was calling me Tex. One day, I had a visitor. When I went to the visiting room, I saw Lilly sitting there. I turned to leave when she said, Kurt, please stop. I need to talk to you. I have nothing to say to you, Lilly, I replied. We're going to lose our house. You have to give me some money to stop the foreclosure, she pleaded. That's your house, Lilly. I never wanted it, but you kept pushing until I gave in. The house means nothing to me, and now it has no value. Let the bank take it. Kurt, you can't do this. You have to help me. Go ask your friends for help. I'm sure they have enough money. Why are you doing this to me? She cried. Why did you lie and tell the judge that I was hurting our daughter? She didn't know what to say. She knew she had wronged me. She started crying and I walked out. It felt good to get that off my chest. As I was being taken back to my cell, the guard got a call and was told to bring me back. I expected to see Lilly again, crying and begging, but I was surprised to see Gina. Gina, your mom didn't tell me she brought you. I wouldn't let her come without me, she said. I'm sorry I missed your birthday, I said, but I do have a present for you. Dad, I knew you would miss it, and it's okay. I still love you. Also, you don't have to get me a present. What a wonderful daughter I have, I thought. Well, I can't give it to you now, but I can tell you what it is. Gina, the Oak Forest home is yours. It's being put in a trust for you until you become an adult. Once I get out, can I stay there? Of course, I'll pay you rent. Her eyes got wide and a big smile spread across her face. Dad, oh my God, you've just cleared a big hurdle for my surprise. I still can't tell you, but when I do, you'll understand. I love you so much. I love you too, honey. I was curious about her surprise. It must have to do with our home, not the mansion, but our real home. We both smiled as we talked more. She spoke about Alex, her counselor. I wondered if she had a crush on him. I hoped he was professional and had no wrong intentions. I would need to meet this Alex once I got out. As I was taken back to my cell, I had a huge smile on my face, both from the argument with Lilly and the nice talk with Gina. The other inmates wondered what I had done now. They knew by now that a smile meant something was up. One day, Gummy visited. Everything was ready. There was video of my wife and others, including lawyers and politicians, doing bad things. They were all bragging about how they were above the law and could do anything. It's amazing how people ignore the cleaning staff. They come and go without notice. For someone cleaning offices after hours, money talks. Free rent for a year talks a lot. We had them place hidden cameras in the conference rooms and offices. I was sure I would get enough evidence to ruin some lives. My brother, secretly of course, would post the videos online with the title, Don't Mess with Texas. They would be sent to important sites and news stations and tabloids in the whole state. The different news stations would compete to create the biggest story from it. The politicians and lawyers would rush to fix the damage. I smiled and said, In a week, tell the others what to do next. He replied, I will. As I walked back to my cell, I had a big smile on my face. Ringer saw it and knew I had just talked to Gummy. He said, "Oh no." I just nodded and smiled wider. When the videos hit, I was lying in my bunk and heard the whispers going around the jail. Somehow, the news had reached our tiny, awful place. I started hearing it out loud. "Don't mess with Texas." I was surprised a few minutes later when the big guy, one of the 6, stopped by my cell and said, "You're one tough guy. I'm sorry for what I did to you. I told you all not to mess with me, that you'd regret it. Now more people are regretting messing with me. I repay kindness with kindness and violence with violence. Well, I hope you accept my apology. Sure, just remember, being big doesn't mean you can't get hurt." He nodded and left. About 3 days later, I was called by the judge again. He had already called my lawyer, and he was on his way. We sat in the video room while we waited for the judge to connect. "I wonder what this is about," he said with a smile. "Only time will tell," I said, grinning. "Oh no," he said. When the judge came on, he looked at me with rage. "You did this," he yelled. "What are you talking about?" I said calmly. "Your Tex, right?" He was still yelling. "Some people call me that," I said coolly. "You'll pay for this," he shouted. "I've been in jail for the last 4 months. How could I have done anything?" I replied simply. "You have friends." "We all have friends, Your Honor," I said sarcastically. "You won't get away with this," he snapped. "I don't know, Judge. You might be out of a job soon, and I hear your wife is leaving you. You'd better call off your friends," he demanded. "Now you're calling my friends dogs? I'm not sure they'd like that. You know, if you corner a dog, it might bite." "Are you threatening me?" he asked. "No, just an old saying," I said. "I'm going to make your life miserable. When you get out of that horrible jail, you'd better watch your back. One day you'll answer to people who don't care about your life, and I'll be happy with whatever they do to you." He then cut the call. I turned to my lawyer. "Did you get that?" "Sure did," he said, holding up his phone. "More fuel for the fire. The Bar Association will want to hear that. It seems that intimidation is a crime in Illinois." A few days later, I had another visitor. It was my wife again. "Oh, it's you. I thought I made it clear I have nothing more to say to you." "You bastard!" she yelled. "What are you talking about?" I asked calmly. "You got me fired. My picture is all over the news and the internet. How could you do this to me?" She sobbed. "You did it to yourself," I said. "Do you hate me that much?" "Yes, and all your lawyer friends who think they're better than everyone else," I said strongly. "When we first met, you were a sweet small-town girl with a great personality. Now you're just a person who cares for no one but yourself." "What am I going to do? I have no job and no one will hire me now." "Move back to Seymour and live with your folks," I suggested. "I can't." The local paper's headline was, "Local Girl at the Heart of Chicago Scandal. My parents are retiring early and moving to Florida to avoid all the talk. Florida seems to be a good place for you. You'll be far from me." "They won't have me. They hardly want to talk to me." "Wow, your parents hardly want to talk to you, and your daughter barely talks to you. Maybe it's you?" I said. "I guess you should move and start over somewhere. You'd better not take Gina with you. As soon as I'm out of here, I'm going to ask the court for primary custody. With your reputation, they will reconsider letting you be the example for an impressionable young woman." "You can't do that," she said. "She's all I've got left." "Lily, I don't care. You did this to yourself. We had a good life, then you messed it up. Hey, that's a thought. You could work for one of your lawyer friends. I'm sure there's a market for someone like you." She looked at me. All I saw was pain in her eyes. She put her head on the table and cried. "Sucks to be you," I said. Then I asked, "Did you bring Gina?" She got angry, saying, "It's Regina. And no, she's doing something with that doctor friend of hers." "Well then, I have nothing more to say to you. Don't come back unless you bring Gina." I turned and walked off as she was still fuming. I didn't have a smile this time. I actually felt sorry for her. She was broken. The next day, I saw a news report. Apparently, the top floor of a 5-story office building downtown had caught on fire. The sprinkler system kept the lower 4 floors from being destroyed, but the top floor was ruined. I just smiled. Ken came to see me the next day and told me that the law firm's off-site server had crashed. All their data was lost. Again, I just smiled. A couple of weeks later, another visitor came to see me. It was Gina. She must have asked her mom to bring her. She walked in with the biggest smile I had ever seen. "Gina," I called, "you look incredibly happy. What's up?" "I have a surprise for you. You won't believe what it is." "Well, I remember you saying it had something to do with the Oak Forest house. Don't tell me you and your mom moved back there. I know she hates that place." "You're half right," she said. I looked at her, puzzled. "Mom is being kicked out of the Wilmette house, and I am moving to the Oak Forest house." "How can you do that? The court gave her primary custody until you become an adult," I asked. "That's the surprise. I am legally an adult now." Now I was really confused. "Huh?" "I got emancipated. That's what Alex and I have been working on for the last 2 months. Once you put the house in trust for me, it became easy. I needed a safe place to stay, and our old neighborhood is perfect." "So, let me get this straight. You are considered a legal adult now?" "Yes. When I started having problems with school because of stuff at home, Dr. Hodges helped me. Now, when you get out of here, you can come home too. I can't wait to go back to high school in Oak Forest. I've talked to a lot of my old friends. They can't wait for the summer to be over so school will start. Mom did say you were spending time with your counselor. I'd like to meet this Alex," I said. I was still worried about this older person showing so much interest in my daughter. "Well, you're in luck. Alex brought me here today." Now I was really concerned. "He's driving her around Chicago?" "I'll be right back," she said, heading toward the door. I had to think. How should I tell Alex that he better be careful with my daughter? I didn't want to upset Gina, but I needed to warn him. When Gina came back, she was followed not by a man, but by a beautiful woman with dark hair. She smiled at me and said, "How have you been?" I looked closer and said, "Freddie?" She replied, "I haven't heard that name in about 20 years. Freddie, or Alexandria Frederico, was from my neighborhood. She didn't hang out with my group, but we went to school together. Gina looked confused. "Dad, how do you know Dr. Hodges?" Freddie, or Alex now, I guess, answered. "We used to live in the same neighborhood. He ignored me back then, though." I turned to Gina. She was a couple of years behind me in school, and we didn't really hang out together. "And you were a troublemaker back then," she said with a smile. "You haven't changed much, pushing 40 and in jail." My face turned red. I said, "I still can't keep my mouth shut when I should." "That sounds about right," she said. "I've heard I should probably call you Tex." "Huh?" Gina said. "Why would you call him that?" "That was his nickname when he was a teenager. He never backed down when someone did him wrong. Your mom definitely did him wrong, and I bet the news about the law firm is all Tex's doing." "I plead the fifth," I said. "Before we go on, I hope you don't mind that I've been spending time with Gina." "It's Gina," Gina corrected her. "Sorry, I forgot," she said. Then she looked at me again. "When I first started talking to Gina, about 9 months ago, she was pretty upset about everything going on in her life. I wondered if she was related to you. D'Angelo isn't a very common name. When I looked up her records and found out her father's name was Kurt, I still wasn't sure. I always knew you as Tex. When she told me you were in jail, I was pretty sure it was you." "I was pretty bad back then," I admitted. "You must have changed and gotten successful to have a home in Wilmette," she said. "It's just a house. It was never my home," I said. Then Gina spoke up. "Yeah, our real home is in Oak Forest. South Side, but in a much better neighborhood than where we grew up," Alex said. "Yeah, if only we'd stayed there. Maybe we wouldn't be where we are today," I said, feeling sad. It was probably true. If Lilly had been happy with our loving home, we would still be happily married. We talked for a little while longer, then I pulled Freddie aside and said, "I really appreciate you taking time away from your family to help her out. Thank you also for helping her become emancipated. That is going to change everything." "That's okay, Tex. She is like family to me. I've grown very attached to her." "Well, thank you again." "When you get out of here, you can take us all out for dinner somewhere," she said. "That I will do if I ever get out of here." The next 2 weeks were quiet, just the daily routine in the jail. Gina and Freddie visited me both Sundays. I really appreciated Freddie helping Gina. Gina told me that Alex helped her decorate the house. They bought all new furniture and other things. When I asked where they got the money, she said, "From Uncle Ken, of course. I do have money set aside for my needs, right?" "Yes, I just didn't want to find out that Freddie had been paying for anything." She's been a great help, but no, she hasn't bought any of it. I hope it isn't all girly stuff. I would like to feel at home there. Don't worry, your man cave is still a man cave. She was talking about the basement. I had fixed it up as a place to relax. The story remains consistent, but the language is more accessible. Living with two women can be tough after a while. You just need a place to escape to. After they left, I lay there thinking about how my daughter was growing up. Now she was an adult. Soon, I would be living alone. In a couple of years, she'd go to college, and then who knows what. I hoped to meet someone who liked simple things in life. Then on Monday, Lily came by again. When I saw her, I almost walked out the door. "Kurt, wait, we need to talk," she said. I sighed and turned back. Now what? I wondered. Do you know what our daughter did? What are you talking about, Lily? I asked. She got herself legally free from us. She doesn't have to live with either of us now. In fact, she's already moved out, and I don't know where she went. Oh, that, I said. So, you know. Did you tell her to do this? She accused me. No, she decided herself with help from her school counselor. So where is she staying with the counselor? No, she's moved back home. Back to the south side? What about school? She asked. She'll go back to Oak Forest in the fall, I said. She hated that Wilmette school, Lily. They teased her for being from the projects. She was never part of the rich kids. You took her from a school she liked, where she had good friends, and put her in a place that made her feel bad about herself. You did more harm than good by moving her there. I was just trying to make sure she got a good education, she said. Kids learn more from their parents than from a classroom. We were her teachers for life. What do you think your example will teach her? I hope it's what not to do. Our job as parents is to raise responsible adults. I hope we did that. And I hope she overlooks our mistakes, especially our marriage. It wasn't all bad, she said. No, but it sure ended badly. Lily, I hope you find what you're looking for. Obviously, I didn't have it. She looked sad, her eyes full of regret. I got up and walked out. I felt sorry for her again. The day came for my release. I was called to court. Gina, Freddie, and Lily were there. As I waited for the judge, I wondered what he would say. I still wasn't going to apologize. The bailiff said, "All rise." We stood as the judge walked in. It wasn't the same judge. I wondered if he lost his job. The judge looked at all the details of my case. Then he looked at me. Mr. D'Angelo, what do you have to say for yourself? I hesitated, then said, I served my 6 months plus 2 more. You could have apologized at any time and been set free, he said. I didn't think the other judge deserved my apology, so I served the time. You are stubborn, Mr. D'Angelo. I call it strong-willed, and it helped me succeed in business and life, I replied. Regarding your divorce settlement, it still stands. You need to pay for the months you missed. Then my lawyer spoke up. Your Honor, my client will pay what he owes. We calculate it to be a little under $20,000. He will pay $20,000 today to settle everything. Lily stood up and said, What? You owe me more than that and need to keep paying until Regina turns 18. Miss, the judge said, I will handle all matters in my courtroom. Now, counselor, how did you get that figure? My client paid for spousal support, the mortgage and insurance, and gave his daughter money. He kept paying for insurance and his daughter during his time in jail. He didn't pay his ex-wife or the mortgage because he wasn't working and couldn't earn a salary. Now he can work again. The judge looked at the numbers and said, He was in jail for 8 months. Spousal support alone would be $16,000 plus the mortgage. Your Honor, the court judgment states, until the child becomes a legal adult. The child has been legally free for 3 months, and the house was foreclosed on 3 months ago. There was no loan to pay. The amount owed is $19,782. He will pay $20,000 to end everything. He looked at the papers and our numbers. He couldn't disagree with what was clear in front of him. I need to look into this more, but if your numbers are correct, I will accept them. Then he looked at Lily and me. You have a child together. Legally, she's an adult, but she's still a teenager. She needs both of you to be civil so she can grow up healthy. You should all be civil to each other. Then looking directly at me, he said, And you should be civil to others involved in what led to your divorce. Can I get your word on that, Mr. D'Angelo? Yes, Your Honor, I said. Mrs. D'Angelo? he asked. Yes, Your Honor, she replied. And Regina? He said, looking over at the seats. It's Gina, but yes, Your Honor, she corrected him. Then unless these numbers turn out to be wrong, I will close this case. And Mr. D'Angelo, you are free to go. Thank you, Your Honor, my lawyer responded. As we stood and started to leave, Gina ran up to me and gave me a huge hug. Freddie stood by with a smile. I noticed Lilly glaring at us. She walked over and said, $20,000? That's it? That's unfair. Why? You chose your new men over me. They can help you get back on your feet. You can't do this to me. Lilly, the judge asked us to be kind to each other. Let's do this for Gina. It's Regina, Lilly snapped. Our daughter, okay? What am I supposed to do? I have no job, no place to live, nothing. You can find another job. And about a place to live, I can help. I'll put you in one of my rentals, rent-free for 6 months. That way you can focus on getting your life in order. You want me to move back to the South Side? She whined. It's free rent. How is that bad? She exclaimed. Turning to Gina and Freddie, I asked, Ladies, are you ready to go? Sure, they both said. Freddie, I believe I owe you a nice dinner. I seem to remember something like that, she said. Well, let's go to RPM Italian. I made a reservation as soon as I knew when I would be released. I really need to get rid of the taste of jail food. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lilly fuming. That was our restaurant. We used to go there for special occasions. The reservation is at 6:30, so we have some time. Do you mind if we drive around a bit? I just need to get used to being free, I said. Then I turned to Freddie and added, I made the reservation for 4. Can you call your husband and see if he's available? Freddie became silent, her face showing no emotion. Then Gina said, Dad, she doesn't have a husband anymore. She turned to Freddie. I'm sorry, Dr. Hodges, I never told him. I was confused. Every time we talked, she had worn a wedding ring. Even now, she was wearing it. What was I missing? I'm sorry, Freddie, if I offended you, I offered. No, don't be. You didn't know. My husband was killed on the Eisenhower about 5 years ago. A big truck changed lanes and pushed Mike into the divider. They say he died instantly. I am so sorry, Freddie. I didn't know. I just assumed because you wear rings that you were married. Yeah, I just haven't been able to take them off yet. Somehow I feel like if I do, I'll be throwing him away. I know, psychologist with a mental problem. I've heard it before. Well, I'm sorry. Will you join us so I can try to make it up to you? She looked sad, but said, I think that will be okay. I had been so focused on my problems and getting even that I never even asked about her life. I felt like such a jerk. I needed to change that. Starting tonight, I would be open to hearing whatever she wanted to tell me about her life. I wanted to be a better friend. The meal was great. It felt wonderful to wear regular clothes and not worry about watching my back. Freedom felt a bit strange after 8 months. By the end of the meal, I felt better about everything. I took a chance and said to Freddie, Alexandria, when you're ready, would you let me take you out on a real date? I don't care how long it takes, just whenever you feel comfortable. In the meantime, can we stay in touch? Dad, of course we're staying in touch. She isn't getting rid of me that easily, my daughter said. And I wouldn't have it any other way, Freddie said to Gina. Then she turned to me and said, Mike and I never had kids. Between my studies and his new business, it wasn't the right time. So having Gina as a stepdaughter has been very nice. I hope you don't mind. After all you've done for us, I wouldn't have it any other way, I stated. As we left the restaurant, Gina said, I hope you like the look of our old house. Anything is better than where I've been for the last 8 months, I said with a chuckle. When we got there, I was surprised. The shutters were painted and the bushes were trimmed. It looked great from the outside, and I was eager to see inside. It looked different than how I had left it, but it felt more like a home. I could see Freddie's touch. I know it sounds cheesy, but I started tearing up. This hardened criminal was crying. Kurt, I heard Freddie say. I wiped my eyes and said, I feel at home. Kurt, Alex said. I turned to her. She took off her rings and smiled at me. I couldn't help it. I smiled back, and then we hugged. 10 lawyers, 4 paralegals, 6 politicians, and a judge had their careers and marriages ruined by what led to my divorce and the aftermath. Stubborn or strong-willed, either way, sometimes it pays to stick to your principles. On the bright side, Gina got a new mother and also a new brother and sister. They were about 18 years younger than her. One is named Frederick, the boy, and the girl is named Alexis. They were twins, and I loved that I could name them both after the person who helped me start a new life. Oh, Lilly? She married a rich lawyer. I guess she got what she wanted. I thought we had it all. A loving family, a good home in a nice neighborhood, a healthy child, and a thriving business with no real money worries. I guess to me, we had everything. But to her, we were missing something big, social status. Now she has it. She's married to a rich lawyer and lives in a big house in Winnetka. But she also has a husband who mistreats her and cheats on her. He only keeps her around to look like he has a stable home. I hope she's happy. I know I am. Before moving on to the second story, please let me know your opinion. Do you like the story long or short, a series or separate parts? The comment section is always welcome, and don't forget to let me know which of these two stories you like better. Story 2. I'm leaving, I shouted. Good, and don't come back, my wife yelled back. Normally I would have said something rude as I walked out the door, but tonight I didn't want my last words to her to be so harsh. We had fought like this many times during our 14 years of marriage. I always came back. But not this time. She would realize soon that I meant it. Jenna, my wife, had been meaner these last 6 or 7 months. I didn't know why. Her sharp words hurt a lot. I started staying away from her as much as I could without making things worse. I stayed at the car lot longer each day. Sometimes I got home after Jenna and Carrie, our 13-year-old daughter, had already eaten dinner. I had to find my own food. Sometimes there were leftovers. Lately, it seemed like they threw them out before I got home. My name is Kurt Kaminsky. Actually, it's David Kurt Kaminsky. But my dad's name is also David, so they called me Kurt to avoid confusion. I'm not a junior because his middle name is John. I would have been fine with Junior or DJ, but they chose Kurt. DK just didn't sound right. Yes, I'm Polish, well, American with Polish roots. I've heard all the jokes. Some are silly like, why do Polacks have ski at the end of their names? Because they can't spell toboggan. Others are mean, but I won't repeat the worst ones here. In our small town of about 10,000 people, I'm the only one with a Polish last name, except for my dad. This made me the target for many jokes. My mom's side of the family is German, French, Irish, and English mixed. But with a last name like Kaminsky, I'm Polish. But let's get back to the main issue. My wife, soon to be my ex-wife, is not who I thought she was. I found this out just 4 weeks ago. As I said before, I was spending more time away from my wife because of her mean behavior. One Monday night, after missing dinner again, I decided to eat at a local restaurant. I was in a booth about to order when I heard 2 guys talking in the next booth. They mentioned the word Polak, which caught my attention. I listened closely, and one man asked, "So how long have you been seeing the Polak's wife?" "Since before they were married. I even saw her on their wedding day," the other man said, and I recognized the voice of my best friend George Carey. I sat there in shock. George continued talking, but I didn't hear much until he said, "Yeah, we meet up at least twice a month. Kurt is so busy he has no clue what's going on." The waitress came to take my order, but I left without a word, heading away so they wouldn't see me. I couldn't believe it. My wife, Jenna, with my best friend. George had been my best man at our wedding. He was also my mechanic. Well, he wouldn't be for much longer. If you haven't guessed, I own a used car lot. Yes, I'm a used car salesman. People trust me because I sell good cars at fair prices and stand behind them. George is great with cars, and I kept him busy and paid him well. I wanted to hire him directly, but he didn't want a Polish boss. He said it jokingly, but I knew he meant it. So he remained an independent contractor. But he only worked for me. I left the restaurant and drove around asking myself, could this be true or was he just joking? I thought about hiring a private detective, but if George only met Jenna twice a month, it could be a waste of money. Instead, I decided to check her phone and emails. That night, Jenna was as mean as usual. That was fine. I didn't want to talk to her anyway. After she went to sleep, I checked her email. There was nothing suspicious. Her phone was password protected, but it didn't take long to guess that our daughter's birth date was the code. I found a few texts that seemed odd, but nothing between Jenna and George. His name was in her contact list, but since he was my best friend, that wasn't weird. Maybe he was just joking, I thought. Still, her recent behavior made me think something was up. Maybe not with George, but maybe with someone else. I went to bed but couldn't sleep. I checked the clock and saw it was after 2:43 a.m. before I finally fell asleep. The next day at the car lot, George came in and made a Polish joke. He did this often, and I usually just gave a small laugh and moved on. But today was different. I snapped at him, "George, do you even know where Poland is on a map? You joke that Polish people are dumb, but I bet they can point out the U.S. on a map. Just get to work." George looked dumbfounded. He knew he couldn't find Poland on a map. George wasn't book smart, he was street smart and good with engines, but not cut out for college. That's probably why he had stuck with me in high school. I helped him with homework so he could graduate. Now I started to question my choices in friends and in my wife. I went into my office, closed the door, and thought about how I could find out what was really happening. I couldn't confront them, they would deny it. I needed proof. I called a private investigator in Santa Fe. I told him my worries. He said, "If it happens only twice a month, following them would be too pricey. You could put a tracker on your wife's phone to know where she is. Setting up cameras in your home is another option, but good ones are expensive and might get noticed. I'd suggest a phone tracker and hope to catch them at a motel or something." He recommended some tracking software, and I said I'd send him some money for his help. "You don't owe me anything," he said. "This info is available on the internet." "Still, you gave me good advice. Expect a check in the mail. If you're ever in Silver City, visit Kaminsky's car lot and say hi." "I don't usually go to that part of the state, but I will if I do," he said, sounding genuine. "Part of why I was good at selling cars was because I made people feel valued. I learned early on that people need to feel important." I looked up the tracking software and decided to go for it. Then I checked out the cameras and agreed with him. They were too noticeable. That night, after everyone went to bed, I got up, downloaded the tracking app on her phone, and linked it to mine. It ran in the background without her knowing. I slept better that night. The next day at work, I checked the app often. She was at her part-time job at the university bookstore. She worked 15, 20 hours a week and called her earnings mad money, usually spending it on salons. Later, she was at the grocery store and then home. George was in and out most of the day, but when Jenna was home, he was at work. So at least that day, I was confident nothing happened. That night, I decided to be nicer to my wife and daughter. Jenna responded a bit better when I asked if they wanted to go out to eat at Revel Restaurant. Carrie, our 13-year-old, wasn't thrilled, but came along grudgingly. Dinner was nice. When I mentioned George, Jenna got a faraway look in her eyes, but quickly changed the subject when she noticed me looking. This made me more suspicious. I needed proof. I didn't check her phone that night. No luck with texts or calls before, so either she was deleting them right away or not making them. As I got in bed, I told Jenna, "Thanks for going out to dinner tonight." "Thank you, Kurt. It was a pleasant surprise." She looked at me with a soft expression. It had been a while since things were good between us. Jenna finished in the bathroom and came to bed, curling up next to me. I had mixed feelings about being intimate with her. What if she was cheating? I decided to let her make the first move. Until I had proof, I would just follow her lead. That night, we were intimate. It was nothing special, but it happened. For the rest of the week, I kept checking her phone location and found nothing unusual. On Saturday night, after she was asleep, I checked her phone for texts or calls and again found nothing. I started to believe maybe George had lied, trying to impress someone with fake stories. It wasn't the first time. I knew that much from my high school days. I returned to bed, but I couldn't sleep. It was 2 a.m., and I just lay there, staring at the ceiling. I decided to get up and go downstairs for a drink, hoping it would help me sleep. I found myself sitting with a glass of Jack Daniels and Coke in one hand and her phone in the other. I had the urge to check her phone again. I entered the password, our daughter's birthday. The phone unlocked and I went to the home page. Then it hit me like a ton of bricks. Our daughter's birthday was significant. Her pregnancy had been tough. We thought we might lose her several times because her RH factor wasn't compatible with my wife's. It felt like my wife's body was fighting the baby. She was on bed rest for the last 3 weeks just to carry the baby to full term, but she did give birth on time. Exactly 9 months after our wedding, Carrie was born. We were so happy. Carrie was healthy but difficult. She cried all the time, had no regular nap schedule, and struggled with breastfeeding. It felt like a constant battle. During Carrie's second year, my wife told me, "We won't be having another one." It made me sad, but the baby was taking all the joy out of our lives. I mentioned that Carrie was born 9 months to the day after our wedding. Some call those babies wedding night babies because they are conceived on the wedding night or honeymoon. A thought struck me. If what George said was true, Jenna might have been pregnant before our wedding night. Jenna had been on the pill. No, we didn't wait until marriage to be intimate. We were quite active in that way. The doctor said the stress of the wedding could have made the pill less effective. If true, it wasn't effective on any day around that time. I now knew what I had to do. There was a 50% chance I wasn't the father. You know the saying, the early bird gets the worm. In George's case, it might be, the early worm gets the bird. I got out of bed and went to the bathroom. I found some Q-tips and went to Carrie's room. She was finally a sound sleeper at 4 years old after years of struggle. She slept with her mouth open, so it was easy to swab the inside of her cheek. She didn't wake up. I put the Q-tip in a plastic bag and repeated the process for myself. If Carrie was my biological daughter, I would still have questions about Jenna's faithfulness. If not, things would get very serious. Sunday was chore day for us, and we all had tasks to do. I took my time to avoid Jenna and Carrie. My emotions were all over the place, and I didn't want them to notice anything. I was anxious, but also hesitant about finding out if my suspicions were true. It weighed heavily on me all day. Jenna asked, "Is something bothering you, Kurt?" I had to come up with something fast. "I'm looking to buy a lot of cars at the next auction. It could stretch our finances until I make some sales." "Well, don't overextend us," she said. She always used us when talking about the business. It was nice that she felt it was ours, but I had started my car lot as a corporation to protect against personal risk. The world is full of lawsuits, and I didn't want the business affecting my personal life. "I think I'm going to pay off the credit cards and cancel all but one so our credit looks better," I told her. This was just an excuse to explain my caution and prevent her from hurting me financially if she learned my plans. "Do what you think is best," she said casually. That idea had come to me on the spot. Sometimes your mind works well when it's pressed. It would limit any fallout if my suspicions were right. So, early Monday morning, I took the samples to West New Mexico University and talked to the science department. They sent me to the department head. He said they had a program for cellular and molecular biology and would be happy to help. I gave him my business cards and offered a 10% discount to anyone who worked on the samples. He appreciated it, saying, "I've been thinking of trading my Camry in for a newer car. I might check out your lot. If you don't find something, let me know. I'll help you find a car you like," I told him. "Thanks, I'll do that," he replied. I left the university with a smile, but it was a worried one. The results could mean the end of my marriage. When I told Jenna about buying more cars, it was to cover my anxious look. Now I thought it wasn't a bad idea. I called Paul, my bookkeeper, loan officer, and part-time salesman, to discuss it. "We can make it work," he said. "Paul, I'd like to do something else too. I'd like to pay off my mortgage," I told him. "Can we work out a one-time payment so I can make that happen? Let me look at the finances, and I'll get back to you this afternoon." As he left my office, I thought about calling my lawyer for a referral to a family lawyer. But then I told myself, wait and see what the results are first. I still hadn't found any proof that my wife was having an affair. That afternoon, Paul showed me the spreadsheet, and we talked about moving forward with both of my plans. The next 2 days felt like the longest ever. I was so anxious waiting for the DNA test results. Late Wednesday, I got a call from the department head. He was coming over with the results and to check out a car. When he arrived, I led him to my office. His face told me everything. Then he spoke, confirming it. "The two samples are not related." I nodded, feeling crushed even though I expected it. He gave me a moment to process the news and handed me the envelope with the results. I looked at him and asked, "So, what kind of car are you thinking about?" "Well, I know this sounds cliché, but I just turned 50 and I want a sports car. I was thinking of a Mazda Miata." I told him I didn't have one on my lot, but I would find one at the auction the next day. I'd make sure it was in good shape and call him the following afternoon to let him know what I found. As he left, I told Anna, my receptionist office manager, I'll be leaving early, but you can call me if you need me. She rarely needed me as she could handle almost everything. I drove around town just looking. Everything seemed different. I called my lawyer. He was sad about the news but gave me a referral to another lawyer. I made an appointment for the following afternoon. I grabbed dinner at a restaurant and thought about my life. Had I wasted 15 years of my life? I didn't even get a child from the marriage. I still thought of her as my kid, but biologically she wasn't. What would I do now? I couldn't pretend I didn't know. Before, I was clueless, but now there was no going back. One thing was sure. George would pay. I didn't care if he had been my best friend for years. With friends like him, I might as well have enemies. Jenna would pay too. I wondered if she knew Carrie wasn't mine. Even if she didn't, she had hidden this from me. She had slept with my best man, my best friend. Now I fully believed she was seeing him at least twice a month. I was getting angrier and knew I needed to be alone. I called Jenna to say I wouldn't be home that night. I couldn't go home. I might do something that would land me in jail. She answered the phone. "Hey, Kurt." "Hey, I'm staying in Albuquerque tonight to be ready for the auction at 8 o'clock, I said in a flat voice. "Oh, okay. Have a safe trip," she said. Usually I didn't go to Albuquerque for an auction, so this was different. I wondered if she would take advantage of my being gone. She would have to leave Carrie with my parents, and that would be hard to explain. I decided to check her phone tracker throughout the evening to see if she went anywhere. I drove to Albuquerque, planning to buy at least 20 cars, including the Mazda Miata. I would arrange for them to be picked up or shipped back to my lot once the auction was over. I wondered who would check them mechanically. George wouldn't be doing any more work for me once his current tasks were done. He would expect a lot of money for checking all those cars, but that wasn't going to happen. I would ask one of the local dealers at the auction to recommend someone who was good and trustworthy to check the cars before they came to our town. I reached Albuquerque around 9 o'clock and got a room at a Best Western. Even though I owned my business, I couldn't justify an expensive hotel being charged to the company. The room was comfortable, and that's all I needed. I'm a simple man with simple needs. I checked Jenna's phone tracker when I got in. She was still at home, or at least her phone was. I found it hard to sleep. I kept thinking about why she would do this. How could she justify sleeping with him on our wedding day and then continue for who knows how long? I went over our marriage in my mind. It was never perfect, but whose is? I thought we loved each other completely. Now I knew that was not true from the start. The first few years after we got married were tough. We didn't plan to have a kid right away. We wanted to wait a few years before starting our family. We agreed on having 3 kids before we got married. But the struggles with Carrie changed those plans. Knowing those plans were ruined by my best friend made all our struggles feel like wasted effort. 14 years of wasted effort. Oh, sure, there were good times, but even those memories were now stained. I couldn't help but think they were having an affair through our entire marriage. If Jenna hadn't been with George, maybe I would have gotten her pregnant. Maybe her pregnancy wouldn't have been so hard, and we could have had more kids. George ruined my life by being with her on our wedding day. Now he's with her at least twice a month, probably laughing at me. He has to pay for this, I thought to myself as I lay there trying to sleep. I was furious again. I needed to calm down or I wouldn't be able to sleep. I turned on the TV to watch a silly comedy show. The laughing helped calm me down, and by 11 o'clock I felt ready to sleep. I had a long day ahead of me. The auction went well. I bought some great cars at good prices and met some dealers from around Albuquerque. I didn't see a Miata at the auction, so I started asking other dealers. 2 of them had one, a red one and a black one. I asked if they would trade once I knew what color my client wanted. "Of course," they said. "Just let us know what cars you have and we'll make it happen." I should come to this auction more often. The camaraderie with other business people excited me about growing my business. It also took my mind off my troubles. That afternoon, when I met with the lawyer, the news was bad. I would lose half of everything and still have to pay alimony and child support. Child support for a child that wasn't even mine. I decided then that I wouldn't get divorced. Instead, I would leave her with George's child. I would pay off the mortgage on the house. She could stay in it, but my name would stay on the deed, so she couldn't sell it. If I left but kept paying the taxes and utilities, She couldn't file abandonment and take the house. I had to figure out what to do with my business. It was a corporation, but I knew I needed to protect it. I would talk to my business lawyer about that. When I got home, I was exhausted. I told Jenna, "I'm beat. I'm going to take a shower and go to bed." I walked up to the bedroom. "Do you want dinner?" she called out. "No, I had a late lunch," I replied. At least she thought to ask. The shower felt great. My problems seemed to wash away. I had issues, but I was starting to fix them. I fell asleep minutes after my head hit the pillow. I had been stressing all week, and now that I had a plan, my mind could rest. I woke up early, refreshed, and headed to the office before Jenna or Carrie were awake. I had things to do, and more plans to make. As my employees started arriving, they found me deep in spreadsheets and sales projections. I told Paul I had bought 23 vehicles and would trade for a car from a dealer in Albuquerque. I told Anna not to schedule any more work for George, but to keep that quiet. She looked puzzled but said, "You're the boss." "Thanks, Anna, you're indispensable." At 9 o'clock, I called my business lawyer to get advice. "Your business is incorporated, but she might still force you to sell it to get half its value. Have you thought of selling it beforehand?" "No. Would I need to?" "It would keep the business out of her hands," he said. "This business is my life. I couldn't sell it," I told him. "Well, let me think and do some research. I'll call you later this week." That news crushed me. I worked hard to build my business. It's my baby, unlike Carrie, I thought. I was getting furious again. Part of being a good business person is the ability to compartmentalize and multitask. I needed to set my personal troubles aside and get back to work. First on my list was to call Doug, the department head who confirmed what George had said. "Doug, it's Kurt Kaminsky. I found 2 Miatas you might like, one red and one black. Are you still interested?" "I am, if the price is right," he said. "Which color do you prefer? I'll get it here so you can see it. We can talk numbers then. Even if we can't agree, I'm sure I can sell it easily." "Which one do you suggest?" he asked. "Both have pros and cons. Red stands out but fades faster. Black looks sleek but heats up quickly. Will the car be kept in a garage?" "Yes, I can keep it in a garage." "Then red won't see much sun. I'd go with that unless you prefer black." "Red sounds great. How soon can I see it?" "Monday or Tuesday work for you?" "Sure, call me when you get it in." "Will do." I hung up and called the dealer with the red one to arrange a swap. He wanted a BMW on my lot. It had been sitting there for 3 months, but he could sell it faster in the big city. By this time, George had come in. He had a couple of cars that needed work. Being an independent contractor, he could come and go as he pleased, as long as the work was done on time. He overheard some salespeople talking about the 23 cars soon to be on our lot. He popped his head into my office and asked, "Hey, Kurt, when are those cars coming from the auction? I need to plan my schedule to get them ready for you." "The auction house is sending them here. They should arrive late next week or early the week after," I replied. It was tough speaking calmly to him, the backstabber. "Okay, I'll talk to Anna and get on the schedule," he said. I just chuckled to myself as he left. That weekend, I tried to stay away from Jenna. I did yard work and ran many errands. I didn't even bother checking her phone tracker. It didn't matter to me anymore. I felt only disdain for her. Having me raise someone else's child was too much to forgive. On Monday, I was back at the car lot. I called the dealer in Albuquerque and told him I'd be driving the BMW up and picking up the Miata. He said, "Great, we'll have a late lunch when you get here." It was a nice day for a drive, so I let Anna know I would be gone all day. "Hold down the fort," I told her. "Will do, boss," she replied. She was truly indispensable. I need to give her a raise, I said to myself. The drive was nice, and lunch was too. The other dealer made me feel welcome, and I felt like I had a new friend. On the way back, driving the Miata, I was really enjoying myself. The top was down, and the wind was blowing through my hair. I decided to call the other dealer and get the black one for me. I needed to enjoy life a bit more, and soon I wouldn't need a car with more than 2 seats. I drove into our driveway with the red sports car. Jenna looked out the window and must have said something to Carrie because they both came out to see it. "Honey, why do you have this car? We need something with a back seat for Carrie," she said in a condescending way. "I just picked it up from Albuquerque for a customer. I thought you both might like a ride in it," I replied. "No, honey, I don't like small cars. Jenna said with a bit of disdain in her voice. Carrie? I said, motioning for my daughter to get in. No, Dad. It's bad enough being teased about my last name. I don't want to be seen riding around with Polak, the used car salesman, she said in that hurtful way only a teenager can. I was taken aback. Where did this disrespect come from? I looked at Jenna, and she acted like Carrie had done nothing wrong. Great. Now I had both women in my household disrespecting me. I know teenagers aren't supposed to be best buds with their parents, but the way she said that made me see my whole family life as a sham. Well, I'm going to take it for another spin. I'll be back later, I said as I put the car in reverse and took off. I drove along the roads through and around Silver City, fuming. My marriage was quickly falling apart. When I finally pulled into the driveway at around 9:30, I went right upstairs, took a shower, and climbed into bed. When I didn't come down after my shower, Jenna came up and walked into the room. The light from the hallway was shining right in my eyes. I squinted them shut. What, your feelings hurt because we didn't fuss over the sports car? You're not going to come downstairs and spend time with your family? You're not only a Polak, you're also a baby, she said. Where was this attitude coming from? I had to believe it was coming from George. She had been spending time with him, and his insults about my heritage were rubbing off. Now she's spreading that to her daughter. It was her daughter, not mine. I should probably get that into my head. I might have to support her, but she was not my daughter. It seems like you and your daughter would rather not have the Polak around so you can just get lost. I was angry, and her attitude wasn't helping her case at all. She would regret ever treating me like this. Needless to say, it was quiet and cold in the Kaminsky household from then on. The next day I called Doug and he came down to check out the Miata. He was thrilled. We talked numbers, and he was surprised at what a great price he was getting, $3,000 under Kelly Blue Book value. As he was about to leave after filling out all the paperwork, he said, My best friend is in charge of purchasing for the university, and we rotate 16 cars out about every 2 years. I know it's not much, but would you be willing to talk to him? I'm always glad for the business, and you know I'll cut them a deal, I said. I'll have Jim call you later this week. Thank you, I said. That's how I had grown my business, treating people right and letting them know that I appreciated their referrals. On Wednesday, my lawyer called me. Hey, Kurt, I think I have a solution to your problem. Could you stop by this afternoon to discuss it with me? Sure. I'm eager to get this going. The atmosphere around my house is getting pretty unbearable. That day, I met with him and liked the plan. It would take about 2 weeks to put it into action, but if it worked, it would be worth it. Over those 2 weeks, I slowly moved personal items and any tools out of my house and into an apartment in a nearby town. Also, over those 2 weeks, George was getting anxious to have those 24 cars come in so he could have some work that he could bill me for. When he asked, I just put him off. That last weekend, I spent time doing yard work, and when Jenna and Carrie weren't around, I cleaned out my closet and drawers. Jenna did laundry during the week so she could have the weekends to do what she wanted. That was good for me because she wouldn't notice my closet being emptied out. So that brings me back to the Monday night when I told Jenna, I'm leaving. She had again been giving me attitude and disrespecting me, both for my heritage and my job. I shouted at her, calling her something I knew she hated. Needless to say, it was quiet and cold in the Kaminsky household from then on. That's when she really lost it. And that's when I told her I was leaving. In the past, I'd go to a motel for a night or two, depending on how mad I was. Tuesday morning, after the big fight, I went to the car lot early. As my employees came in, I asked them to go into the conference room. I shut the door behind them. We had weekly meetings, so this wasn't unusual. I started the meeting. Good morning. As you all know, the cars I bought a couple of weeks ago arrived yesterday afternoon. They've been checked out and are ready to be sold. We won't be using George for any work here anymore. If he asks, just tell him we're going a different direction and leave it at that. You all have been great, almost like family, so what's coming next is hard for me. I paused and wiped a tear from my eye. I've sold the business. They looked at me with surprise in their eyes. But nothing will change for your jobs. Well, except Anna, you'll be taking on some of my duties and getting a raise. Even though they were shocked, they congratulated Anna. They respected her and knew she deserved it. Anna, after the meeting, please come and talk to me. We'll go over a few things. I'll still be around as a consultant and maybe do an occasional sale. I don't want to take any sales away from you all. They were happy I would still be around, even if it was just sometimes. The meeting ended, and as we walked out, George was standing there. Hey, why wasn't I included in the meeting? He had been in most of the earlier meetings. I said, because this was an employee meeting and you're not an employee. He stammered, then said, I see the cars finally arrived. I'll get started on them right away. No, they've already been checked and prepped for sale. They don't need anything else, I said firmly. He looked at me, shocked. But I check all your cars, Kurt. What's going on? George, I've sold the business and the new owner wants to go in a different direction. I wasn't ready to explode at him. I would save that for another day. I left it at that. Sometimes fewer words are better. I can't believe you sold the business, he exclaimed. What am I supposed to do now? Of course, it was all about him. He knew he was out of a job. Well, I said, you can pick up the check for what you've done in the last 2 weeks. That wasn't much. Anna had only used him a few times. He thought he'd be busy after the 23 cars came in. How wrong he was. I didn't feel sorry for him at all. I only wished I could tell him it was because he was a backstabbing jerk. After the meeting, I asked Anna if she could keep our conversation private. Sure, Kurt. You know I wouldn't say anything you didn't want me to. Okay, here's the deal. I've created companies in Nevada. One company is buying this car lot, and the other is buying the other company. I am the only owner of both companies. I will be divorcing Jenna at some point, and I want to make sure she doesn't get the business. Why? She asked. I've moved out of my house. Jenna doesn't know yet, but I'm not going back. She's been having an affair with George. In fact, I believe Carrie isn't my daughter, but George's. I don't even know if Jenna knows, let alone George. They'll find out soon enough. I'm not going for a divorce right now, but I'll keep paying the utilities and taxes on our house. That way, she won't be able to say I abandoned her and take everything I own, just in case she files for divorce for irreconcilable differences. I want to protect the business. That's why I've arranged for the company to be sold twice. Let them try to figure out what's going on. The sale money will be used up by the time she gets around to finalizing the divorce. Also, I'll be earning next to nothing as a consultant and from a few sales commissions. Anna, you can handle the day-to-day operations. I trust you and your judgment. A smile returned to her face when I explained the new ownership. But when she heard about Jenna and George, she looked ready to burst. This was a woman I truly admired and respected. I continued, I have one more task for you, then I'll get out of your way. I need you to order a new sign and letterhead. We're changing the business name. That will make George and Jenna think the business has really been sold to someone else. The new name will be Bezradny Auto. I spelled it out for her to make sure she got it right. She looked puzzled. I said, someday I'll tell you why I picked that name. For now, just know it tells the whole story. She still looked puzzled, but trusted me enough to follow my instructions. With that, I left, saying a few words to everyone as I walked out. I got in my car and headed toward Albuquerque. I was about 2 hours into my drive when I got a phone call. Caller ID said it was Jenna. I hadn't expected her to call until the evening. Usually, I'd be gone for a day or two. She would call, we'd talk, and I'd come back. Things would get better for a while, then go back to the way they were. Later, we had another big argument, and the same cycle started again. I decided to answer the phone, ready to hear her excuses. Hello? I said, using the car's hands-free mic. Kurt, what's happening? She asked, sounding unsure. Nothing much, just driving to Albuquerque. Why are you going there? She asked. To pick up a car, I replied without any emotion. So what I heard must be wrong then, she said. Great, she must have heard from George. Of course, she'd call him to find out about her husband. I don't know, I said. What did you hear? George told me you sold the business. Why would he call you? I asked, wanting her to feel uncomfortable. She recovered quickly. He's your best friend. He thought I might know. Best friend, what a joke. He thinks I'm clueless about what's really happening with my unfaithful wife. I said to Jenna, my family was embarrassed that I was a used car salesman, so yes, I sold the business. Now you don't have to deal with that anymore. Shouldn't we have talked about that first? She asked. She was probably worried about our finances. It's my company. I owned it before we were married. I can sell it whenever I want. I just hope the new owner treats my former employees right. So, did you get a good price for it? She asked again, concerned about money. I wasn't thinking about that. I just needed a change. I'll start looking for a new job after I take a few weeks off. What about the mortgage? She asked. Oh, I used the money to pay off the house. You don't need to worry about that. We just need to pay the utilities and the taxes now. What about food? What about gas? What about insurance? She said, almost in panic. Oh, I guess I didn't think about that. Do you think you could work more hours? She was flustered now. When are you coming home? Here it was. The truth. I'm not, I said plainly. What? I told you the other night that I was leaving. You told me not to come back, so I'm not. Don't worry. I'll find a way to pay the utilities so the lights won't get turned off. You can't do that, Kurt. You have to come back. I could hear she was desperate. No, I really don't, I said calmly. Kurt, don't do this, she cried. I already have, I said. What about your daughter? She asked, trying to make me feel guilty. You mean Carrie, the girl who's ashamed of her last name and that her dad is or was a used car salesman? Kurt, she's just being a 13-year-old girl. You can't take it personally. Well, it really doesn't matter anymore. I won't be coming back, so neither one of you will be embarrassed by me. With that, I hung up and turned off my phone. I knew she would try to call me back and get angry when I didn't answer. I calmed down from the phone call and tried to enjoy the drive to Albuquerque. I could only guess she would next call her lover to find out more and tell him what I had said. When I reached my destination, I turned my phone back on and saw 5 messages. I listened to them all. 3 from Jenna, 1 from George, and 1 from Anna. I called Anna right away. Hey, Anna, sorry, my phone was off. I was getting unwanted calls. Yeah, I know. Your wife and George have been calling me to find out where you are. I told them you don't own the business anymore, so you don't check in. Hope that's okay. Perfect, I said. If they trouble you too much, tell them you're calling the cops for harassment. I like that, she said. Kurt, you might feel alone, but you have friends. We are your family, always will be. Thank you, Anna. You knew just what to say. I hope your husband knows how lucky he is. Believe me, he knows. He tells me all the time. Don't ever lose that. Don't ever take each other for granted. Don't intend to, she said. I hung up and thought about whether I should call my cheating wife or my backstabbing friend. No, let them wonder. I got out of the car and went into the car lot office. The owner was there waiting. I've got that Audi I told you about. Want to see if we can make a trade? Let's take a look, he said. He was impressed by the car's condition, inside and out and under the hood. He looked at me and said, I could sell this in a week. Are you sure you want to trade? I think I'm getting the better deal. You can repay the favor in the future. I'm not here to make money. I want a sports car. A half hour later, I was back on the road with the top down, enjoying the ride. Now I just needed to decide where to go. North sounded good, so I headed to Santa Fe. For the next 2 weeks, I traveled around northern New Mexico, Arizona, southern Utah, and Colorado. I wanted to stay close in case Anna needed me. I called her a couple of times, and when she said everything was fine, I decided to go west. Of course, I kept getting phone calls. At first, they were annoyed, then apologetic, and finally angry. I listened, but didn't care. When I got the call about the credit card being canceled, I just laughed. When George called saying I was terrible for leaving Jenna and Carrie, I laughed even more. One call was from my lawyer. Jenna had called and was threatening to file for abandonment if I didn't contact her and come back. I called him back. Hey, it's Kurt. So, you've been getting scary phone calls from my wife? I asked. Yeah, but I wouldn't worry about it. If you're still paying the bills for the house, she can't do much. I can do you one better, I said. I've got a recording of me telling her I'm leaving and her telling me to never come back. That's great. Send me a copy, he said. If she gives me any problems, I'll show it to her lawyer. Let them try to push this. Thanks. I'll call you in a week to see what's happening. I traveled all over the Southwest. The Miata wasn't the most comfortable car, but it was fun to drive. I got a lot of looks from people, even some waves from some bored, middle-aged women. I didn't do anything about it, though. I was still married, for what it's worth. I went to Reno, then Lake Tahoe, drove out to the coast, into Napa Valley, and down Highway 1, zigzagging along the shoreline. Went over to Yosemite, down to San Diego, across Death Valley to Vegas, and then to Phoenix. Through all this, I took my time. I stopped at car lots and chatted with the owners. Some were jealous that a guy in his late 30s could just take off and travel. After about 3 months and 8,000 miles, I decided to head back to Silver City. I pulled into Bezrodny Auto and was met by my team. There were a few new faces. They welcomed me back. As I walked into Anna's office, formerly my office, she looked up. When she saw me, she smiled big, got up, came around her desk, and gave me a big hug. We talked for a while. Then I asked, "Do you think we could take everyone over to Wrangler's for a meal and drinks? Can you close up shop at 5 o'clock? It was 3 o'clock, and I had a few things to do. Sure, I'll make sure of it. The whole crew will be there. I said goodbye and told them I'd see them in 2 hours. They seemed happy. I visited my lawyer. He told me Jenna tried to claim I left her to get all my stuff, but he stopped her. We talked about what to do next. At 5 o'clock, I met the crew at Wrangler's. We had a great meal and caught up. After about an hour and a half, they started to head home. Finally, it was just Anna and me. She looked at me and said, "You think you were helpless and clueless, but you weren't. You just trusted the ones you loved." I looked at her. "So you figured it out, huh?" "Yeah, it took me a while," she said. "But you said the new name told the whole story. It kept bothering me until I got it. You may be the Polak, but those jokes don't describe the real you. They're an insult to you and your heritage." "Thank you, Anna. You are the main reason I came back. I had to see how you were doing in my place. I'm happy to say you didn't just fill my shoes, you made your own." "I had a great mentor," she said with gratitude. We hugged, and she went home to her husband. He was a lucky man. I went back to my apartment, which I hadn't been to in 3 months. It was stuffy and needed airing out. I opened the windows and let the cool evening air in. I grabbed a beer and sat out on the deck overlooking the pool. There were a few people swimming and a family playing. I thought back to Jenna and me. We had such high hopes and dreams when we got married. Now they were all gone. I looked at the clock on the wall. It was about 8:30. I thought to myself, I guess it's time for the showdown. I got up, jumped into my Miata, and drove to my house. Technically, it was still mine. I had bought it before Jenna and I got married, and my name was the only one on the deed. I was disappointed when I pulled into the driveway. The yard wasn't kept up. It looked like no one had touched it. The lights were on, so I guessed Jenna was home. I walked up to the door and knocked. A minute later, the door opened, and Carrie was standing there. Her eyes got big, and she said, "Dad?" "Hello, Carrie. Is your mother home?" She stammered, then yelled, "Mom!" I heard Jenna yell from the kitchen in a stressed-out voice, "What is it now?" Carrie kept looking at me and said loudly, "Dad!" Jenna came around the corner, saw me, and shouted, "Where the hell have you been?" I decided to answer her shouting with a calm voice, "Traveling." Just then, George came out of the bedroom area in just his underwear. "Oh," I said, "the whole family is here, Mom, Dad, and child." "What the hell are you talking about?" Jenna spat back. "I assume George has moved in to take my place. After all, it's rightfully his." Jenna looked puzzled. Carrie said, "He lost his apartment after you fired him, and Mom needed a man to help pay the bills and take care of things here since you just left." The anger in her voice was clear. "Well, young lady, you seem to be misinformed." She hated when I corrected her. "George was never my employee, at his insistence, so I couldn't have fired him. And for the bills, all the utilities are auto-paid as well as the car insurance." "What about groceries and gas for the car?" Jenna shouted. "You had a job. Did you lose it? Before it was just your extra money, but it was enough for groceries and gas while I was gone." "So you think you're just going to come back and move right in?" she asked. "No, I'll wait until you and your friend find a place." It was clear they were together in my house, and Carrie seemed okay with it. "I'm not moving out of my house," Jenna said. "Correction, this is my house." "It was mine before we got married, and my name is the only one on the deed," I said. "Well, you left, so now it's mine," Jenna replied. "The law doesn't work that way. Since I've been paying the bills and taxes, I still own it. Even though I was gone for a bit, it's still my house. Don't worry, I'll give you and your boyfriend until the end of next month to find a place." What do you mean, your daughter? She's our daughter. True words could not be spoken, I said with a grin. Jenna looked confused. Then I said to Carrie, Carrie, I know you hate being called a Polak, so I've got good news. I am not your real father. George is... The room went silent. After a minute, Jenna whispered, What? Yes, Jenna. Your little mistake on our wedding day led to a baby that's not mine. The good news, Carrie, is you can now take your real dad's last name and be Carrie. Maybe Mom insisted on the name Carrie in honor of her lover? I stared at Jenna while she looked at George, who had turned pale. George, you don't want to be a dad? Well, too bad. Step up to your responsibility. It's only for about 4 more years, plus college. Jenna and George said together, I don't believe it. I threw the DNA report at them. See for yourself. They grabbed it, looked at it, and both fainted. Carrie, tell your mom and her boyfriend that divorce papers will come next week, along with an eviction notice. I turned and walked away. All the time I had been gone, I wondered if the affair had been going on for our entire marriage. I wondered if she ever loved me. We met when she came to buy a car. George was working on a car, and we both wanted to date her. She chose me. Or did she? I was clueless and helpless. The whole time, George was laughing at me and making jokes about my background. I drove back to the apartment and had a few beers. The next morning, I went to my lawyer and started the paperwork. I knew I'd have to sell the house and split the money, but as someone who was barely employed, I wouldn't have to pay support, hopefully. I had loved Jenna and George. Their betrayal was hard to believe. It would take me a long time to trust anyone again. Maybe I should get some counseling. During the divorce, I went back to work at the car lot, but just as a salesperson. I told everyone I was no longer the boss and only needed 1 sale a week to pay my rent and buy food. When it came to the support the court required, I wanted no spare money left at the end of the month. Jenna hired a lawyer. I didn't know how she could afford it. Maybe he was working without an upfront fee, thinking he'd get a cut later. They checked my bank accounts and found nothing wrong. They didn't look deep enough. I heard from my coworkers that George kept coming in almost every day for the first 2 weeks I was gone, asking for work. Anna kept telling him no. He gave up eventually and regretted not getting a proper certification because he could only find work at a quick oil change place for $13 an hour. I hoped Jenna worked full-time. Otherwise, they would struggle. I contacted a realtor and told Jenna I was putting the house up for sale and that we would split everything 50-50ths. She had been served the eviction notice, so she had to move out before the house sold. One night, I heard a knock on my door. It was Jenna. I opened the door and asked, What do you want? Kurt, can we talk? I don't think that's a good idea. We're in a legal fight. Come on, Kurt, it's just me. No lawyers. Can't we sit and talk? Fine, but let's go to Denny's, I said. I didn't trust her to be alone with her. We sat in a booth at Denny's. After a few minutes of small talk, I asked, Why, Jenna? She looked at me, hesitated, and said, I liked both of you and couldn't choose. So, were you dating both of us at the same time? She looked down and said, Yes, but George told me not to tell you because it would ruin your relationship with him. So, why did you marry me? Because I loved you. And George, I asked. I loved him too, but I knew he wasn't husband material. When you asked me, he and I stopped seeing each other. I wanted to focus on us and getting ready for the wedding. So on our wedding day, you let him sleep with you to say, I'm marrying him, but you're still my man. She started crying. It wasn't like that. So what was it, Jenna? She hesitated and then said, I didn't want to lose him, and he didn't want to lose me. Well, now you have him and your child. Nice job with her name, by the way. I didn't understand it until I had some quiet time during my 3 months on the road. I didn't know Carrie wasn't yours. I really didn't, Jenna said. Then she looked at me and admitted, Kurt, I came to talk to you tonight to tell you that I still love you. It's nice to hear you say that, Jenna, but I don't think you really know what love is. I loved you more than anything or anyone else. Clearly, you can't say the same. I loved you with all my heart, but now I can't say that anymore. I did love you, but now I only feel anger towards you. When I said that, she looked up at me and realized our relationship was truly over. There would never be an us again. I had to ask her one more thing. Did you ever stop seeing him? She hesitated, but then decided to be honest. We never fully stopped. There were breaks, but we would meet up, usually twice a month. I had hoped for a different answer, but at least she told me the truth. One more question. What happened about a year ago that made you start treating me so badly? Your whole attitude changed. Her face turned red and she looked a bit angry. George wanted me to do something I wasn't comfortable with, and not with you. I might have done it if you were involved, but we couldn't figure out how. He kept pushing for it, and I started to resent you for something I knew you would never do. It sounds strange, but I thought I could have my two men love me together, and I resented you for not being the type to allow it. So, did you ever do it? I asked. No, I thought about it, but you left, and my whole world fell apart. Well, now you can do whatever you want. It's no longer my concern. We both knew our conversation was over, so I paid the bill, and we walked out to our separate cars. 4 months later, we were standing in front of a judge who declared us divorced. George was there, too. As we walked out of the courthouse, Jenna asked, "Can we go get a drink for old time's sake?" "Sure," I said. By now, the anger I held for the two of them was fading. Then I thought, this will be the last time I have to be with them. They can be together from now on. They deserve each other. We drove to Wrangler's, and as we walked in from the parking lot, I thought to myself, this feels like the start of one of those jokes. A cheating ex, a backstabbing friend, and a guy walk into a bar. The bartender says, "Hey, we don't serve your kind here." The ex and the friend look at each other. Then the friend says, "Hey, you can't deny service just because he's a guy." The bartender replies, "The guy can stay, but the health department won't let us have certain types of people visible in our place." That was Gus. I had given him a great deal on a classic car someone traded in. Since then, he's treated me like someone special. He loves his 1972 Gran Torino and cares for it like a baby, cleaning and polishing it from front to back. I may be a different kind of guy, but I'm a respected one. Hey, audience! If you like this video and want to keep up with more thrilling stories, make sure to subscribe to Prince Cheating Tales and hit the notification bell. You don't want to miss out on our upcoming adventures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next wonderful story.